Rhizosheath Development. This is really interesting. This is, I think, a type of runner grass. I don't know my grasses very well, but I need to know this one because I'm not sure if you can see that. Let's see if I can zoom in a little. Do you see the little fuzz all over this root? This is an actively growing root that is, obviously to me, producing adequate root exudates in order to, one, attract the biology that would pull together soil aggregates to develop a rhizosheath. This is really interesting, this really dense patch right there, that really dense patch of fuzz, I can only assume is a conglomeration of actinomyces, saprotrophic fungi, and mycorrhizal fungi. The root itself, let's see if I can get an image of that. Is that a good one? That's the root sheath that's pulled off here. Okay, right there. Right there. There is a root tip that is, obviously, before I disturbed it and pulled it out of the ground, was actively growing. And what you'll notice is that there are tiny little hairs all over that root tip. And there's a lot of information that we can extract from that. The root hairs themselves would not be present unless this plant was actively participating in endophagy. It's actively associating with communities of microorganisms that are being taken up into the root, the growing root tip, and then excreted back out. They're cultured inside of the root, and then they're excreted out those little root hairs. And so this is a community, a diverse community of microorganisms. One, the microorganisms that are tiny enough to get inside that root tip, that actively growing root tip, and so those are going to be your bacteria, your yeasts, probably archaea, fungi that are similar to yeast, small, non-hyphal fungi. Making an assumption there. The mycorrhizal fungi would associate with the root of a actively growing root of a plant, and they will build a symbiotic relationship as long as that plant is actively feeding those mycorrhizal fungi. And those mycorrhizal fungi would be a contributing member to the Rhizosheath development. This is early stage of Rhizosheath development. You see soil sticking to the root itself, and that's an indication that, again, one, it's producing those sugars, those sticky substances. This is a great example. I hope I'm getting that on camera well. This is a great example of the microorganisms that are weaving together those soil aggregates, and it's just starting here. You can see that small soil aggregates are being collected and woven. They are being pulled onto this root. And so what happens is this will become, had I not disturbed it, and maybe as it was in the soil it was much more developed before I pulled it out, a sheath, a coating of these small soil aggregates will coat that whole root, and that's an ecosystem. That right there is a very diverse community of microorganisms working together, building symbiotic relationship with the plant, receiving nutrients from the plant by way of complex sugars, amino acids, different compounds that the plants produce and provide to the microorganisms. The microorganisms are, one, being consumed by the plant, or partially consumed, and then their specialty mechanisms, whatever type of organism they are, say they are a Pseudomonas fluorescens who has the ability to solubilize phosphorus, would provide the plant with phosphorus. But being that the microorganisms are associated with this grass in its development, this grass is being fed directly by the microorganisms, which means that the microorganisms, in their own health and well-being, are selectively choosing the right blend, mix, and recipe of nutrients to take up into their own bodies. There is a selective process. They exclude what they don't need. They're not going to take up excess cadmium. They're not going to take up excess aluminum. They're not going to take up excess zinc because it's not in alignment with their own nutritional needs. And so they have the ability to be selective, whereas the plant, if it's being fed soluble nutrients, doesn't have that ability to be selective with what it's taken up. If it's fed soluble potassium, and soluble potassium is in solution, and it's in close proximity to the root will take it up. If there's soluble sodium, if there's salt in, a sodium chloride in the soil solution, if the plant needed some sodium, which it does, it'll take that up, but it'll take it up in excess. It doesn't have the ability to differentiate or be selective when the nutrients are soluble, in close proximity, in solution, in their rhizosphere. So that's why the microorganisms are critical for building high integrity food, high integrity nutritional quality in food. They're selective, they're choosing what is optimal for their own nutrition, microorganisms, and thusly for the plant's nutrition as well. The plant is selecting the microorganisms. The microorganisms are selecting the nutrients.